Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabadis of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com.
Well, Rabbi, we always like to promote education and philanthropy and having pairing those two together. We have a very special guest with us, Jeff Leb, who's with the UJA-Federation of New York. Thank you for coming in. This is a wonderful surprise. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Rabbi, for having me.
No,
maybe you're looking for a donation.
Oh, maybe he's looking. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, we're all looking for a donation, I think.
So what is now you recently started with UJA-Federation of New York. So you're the external, tell us, you're not a lobbyist for them, are you?
Well, I actually am a registered lobbyist,
yes.
But in 2 days, January 8th, will be the completion of my first month at the UJA-Federation of New York. I was previously with the OU, the Orthodox Union, and what my position at UJA is that of Managing Director of Government and External Relations. So the UJA-Federation of New York has a large government relations department and external relations department where we deal with city, state, and federal governments. And I oversee that work.
Well, explain that a little more. What would the Federation and government, where's the bridge? I mean, Jewish Federation take care of the Jewish people, or you can explain that also.
Sure.
What they're doing, but how does that connect to the government?
Sure. So the UJA.
And we only have a half hour, so it's like, because that's a loaded question. You could talk about.
Well, I'm still learning this, but the UJA Federation of New York, we're involved in, first we have many different beneficiary agencies. We have almost 100 beneficiary agencies that we consider part of our network agencies, such as Met Council on Jewish Poverty, Jewish Board of Family and Children's Services, JCCA, many JCCs,
social service organizations.
Social service organizations across the city, and we have a catchment area of New York City and the 5 boroughs, Westchester and Long Island as well, primarily. So we service about almost 100 agencies, and they have different needs. So those needs range from federal, city, and state needs, whether it's funding from different initiatives on the federal side, member items from the city council, or legislation that needs to be passed in the state to help support and provide for the clientele that the agency is servicing.
And you do more than just write a letter in support. I mean,
well, it's active lobbying. Fortunately, yeah. I have a relatively strong background in Albany and state politics and lobbying here. So I've been here the past few years with the OU, and now with UJA. So we actually have conversations with elected officials. We engage our elected officials. Obviously, there are times for letter writing to different electeds, to different leadership levels.
But nothing replaces making a personal appearance.
Definitely, nothing replaces making a personal appearance and introducing a legislator to the constituents that they actually serve and the people who will be benefiting from the legislation, for example, that will be passed.
You say you're in Albany, New York, but of course there's Washington, D.C. also.
Right. There's Albany and there's Washington and there's New York City, where we have New York City Council there.
And do you go to the different towns and villages in Long Island, Westchester, Rockland? Or?
Yes, definitely. I myself live in Long Island. I live in the 5 towns, so I have a little bit of a, I have some more knowledge about Long Island, and we've been dealing with Westchester for a while in my previous positions as well. We make sure we visit all the communities, meet with all the elected officials.
Well, each one of them have governments. I mean, you look at all those small governments,
sure.
And you got to introduce people to these elected officials in the local level also.
Sure, and Westchester and Long Island, you have county legislator positions. So there are, we're blessed with a variety of elected officials across the city, state, federal, and local county as well.
I did a comparison based on where synagogues are located and where the legislators represent. And I found that there are 96% of the state legislature has a Jewish footprint in their district.
Right, I remember you were sharing that with me in Albany, I believe. It's incredible.
Because people don't think of Jamestown and Elmira and Ithaca and Watertown, and Plattsburgh has a new Chabad center now.
Sure.
And you just don't think about all these smaller cities. Herkimer has a synagogue.
Right.
I mean, you just don't think of it as any Jewish life
sure.
and culture.
Sure.
So we do have throughout the state, everyone thinks of New York City or 5 towns and nothing after the 5 towns, but Coram in Suffolk County and Riverhead and the Hamptons, they all have synagogues.
Definitely, and if they don't have synagogues, they definitely have a Jewish footprint. They have constituents in their district who go to a synagogue, maybe right outside their district, or who attend a Jewish day school. And I just remember last year, 2 years ago, we took people from, assembly members from Buffalo and from Utica, and we introduced them to the local Jewish day schools that are there that aren't very publicly well known. And one was actually a Chabad center, and it's refreshing, and it's eye-opening to the elected officials that, hey, we have a whole constituency here that we didn't really know about, but we try to make the connection, the bond, so that the elected officials see what the needs are of the actual community.
Absolutely, because I know Senator Seward from
Sure.
Otsego County. He has a district office that's like 2 doors away from the synagogue in Herkimer, I think. So, but when I went to the synagogue, I noticed his district office there. And, Senator Seward doesn't talk very much about Jewish life and culture, but I still, I asked him if he knew that it was there. He goes, oh, yeah, I know it's there. It's a building. But I think there needs to be more of a connection. He needs to meet the rabbi needs to know that there's an open door with the senator. There might be some, because he's one of the senior members.
Definitely.
You have I don't want to say you're in an easy job, but probably better than any of the 50 states, because Albany, of course, has speakers, Sheldon Silver, who is an Orthodox Jew. And like Mark is saying, maybe not everybody knows about it, but there's such a Jewish presence, surely in New York City and like Long Island, like he says, even further, maybe not so influential. But does that have an effect on your lobbying and working with them? They think, well, Jewish people, we know we have to work with them.
Well, it definitely, you're right. New York State, I would have to say, is probably the best state in the country to do this work. And I've had friends and counterparts who do lobbying in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, and in Ohio, in Florida, and there's definitely the least resistance to some measures over here in New York State. For example, New York State provides for children with special needs or developmental disabilities. There is no other state that provides greater services or more money and more funding towards those children than New York State. You won't find that in any other state in the country. And as far as non-public school, the non-public school community, the yeshiva and Jewish day school community as well, you won't find any other state in the country that provides more funding for those schools as well. So obviously we keep trying to advocate to make sure that we get our fair share as far as day school funding, but New York State has been really fantastic. And it's because of Shelley Silver and because of the leadership in the Senate. Senator Dean Skelos has been
he's your senator.
He is my senator. But even if he wasn't, I would still say he's always been a great friend of the Jewish community. Senator Jeff Klein, who's the coalition co-leader, has also been a fantastic friend. And we're really blessed. And Governor Cuomo has been constantly fighting for the Jewish community.
It's interesting because I just posted 6 stories on my website, jbiztechvalley.com, shameless plug, about Mario Cuomo and the Jewish community.
Sure.
And how he went to see the Rebbe, and that's the only picture I could find where he wore a yarmulke. But there were other times where he really had a strong connection. He talked about being a Shabbos guy, and he talked about other stories about the Jewish community, and had a real bond. Mario Cuomo had a real bond with the Jewish community.
He did, and actually.
And I think Andrew Cuomo's doing the same.
Yeah, definitely following his father's footsteps. And at the wake yesterday, I went to I went to the wake of the governor, and I was fortunate to be able to stand on the line for several hours to get in. But what was amazing was as you were walking by the line to go all the way to the back of the line to wait, there were people of all stripes and colors and nationalities that were all waiting on it. There were many Jews and many yarmulkes and many Jewish people without yarmulkes who were there, and they all had appreciation. They never actually met the governor, Mario Cuomo, but they all had appreciation for what he's done.
Were you born when Mario was governor?
I was, yes.
Oh, okay. But towards the tail end, I guess. So you probably probably don't remember him being in office, at least. So.
I wasn't really involved in politics back then.
One of the major issues, and I was wondering if you have an idea about this, is really for Jewish day schools, of course, as every Jewish parent is involved with, the tuition costs are incredibly high. And they always talk about, but literally it's just talk and nothing's happening. That's why I'm asking, about, especially now, the tuition tax credits
Right.
are helping out the day schools, especially now this year, there's $5 extra billion.
But what happened with, just generally speaking, because I don't know, you
Sure.
shouldn't have to speak with one hat or the other of your previous job and current job. So just generally speaking, what really happened with that? Because when I asked Andrew Cuomo at the news conference about this, he said, Mark, there's just so much money in the budget, and we just couldn't afford it. Now, I'm told that it's a tax credit, so it's nothing that's not going to impact the budget really. But was that message, do you think there was a problem messaging?
Well,
Or what was the real problem? I can't figure it out.
Nothing happens in a vacuum, unfortunately, and we had a really great coalition for the tax credit, and we'll be, trying to push it again this year. Governor Cuomo, when he was, prior to session, when we met with him a few times in July and August throughout the summer, and he was saying that this is a priority, and it's not a matter of politics. It's a matter of justice, he called it, and I think he's very supportive of the tax credit. And unfortunately, we thought we had some momentum going into last year into the budget, but things fall apart. We're not in the leadership meetings, and we don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah, but you said Shelley and Jeff Klein and Dean Scalos are all very supportive, and they're really right behind you.
Well,
And the governor was there.
They're supportive of different education initiatives.
But that's why I'm asking what happened with this income tax credit.
So with the tax credit in particular, there was some opposition about the type of the bill, that it would incentivize people only to go to private school and not public school. The teachers unions had a lot of difficulties with the bill. So there's no denying it. They're a very strong force in New York City and New York State, and they have a lot of members and they control a lot of votes. And I think that ultimately they want to try to work out a bill that will, obviously I don't think they'll ever approve any sort of tax credit bill, with the full heart, but maybe to try to craft a bill that brings something to the public school community as well that they can be happy about and benefits the non-public school community.
Okay, well, this is very good to know, because I didn't realize that it was the teachers union who was really the obstacle here.
Listen, they have concerns, and they control a lot of different votes in. Well, they don't control votes,
No,
but they
but I
have lots of
understand.
members and constituencies who
Right.
are active voters.
Who genuflect with whatever that memo of
Sure.
opposition is, and then they go with that.
Exactly.
And I can certainly imagine.
Let's go from the government, but back to your job, the
Sure.
Federation. Would there be more money? You think maybe that's not your particular job. I know Federation has many, you say this is not your specific expertise, but just to give money to help out. I just know really, I don't know the budget in New York City of the Federation. I just know here in the Capital District
Right.
that there is money, but very little compared to what, to me, again, as maybe as a rabbi, as a parent, this is the future of the Jewish people.
Right.
It may not be your health clubs and like that. And I mean, listen, everything is important, to say the least, but it's where you're going to allocate. But the future of the Jewish people is really in the day schools.
Sure.
And it's an incredible burden. That's what everybody's crying about.
Sure, and that's why in my previous job and in my current job, day schools will remain a very big priority of what we do. The UJA actually a few years ago, for the first time, they established a day school advocacy department, which is in the government relations department that I oversee, and their entire focus in that department is to try to make sure that the needs of day schools are met, and to try to make life and tuition as bearable as possible for the average parent. There are many different streams of funding that we've been able to successfully obtain from the state. I mean, there are things that maybe the average person has never heard of, like CAP and mandated services. CAP is a comprehensive attendance policy. It's not a very sexy topic, but ultimately it provides thousands and thousands of dollars to every single yeshiva and Jewish day school that participates in taking attendance and giving those results to the state education department, as well as mandated services. If you provide the Department of Health, if you give in Department of Health records and you provide standardized testing, regents, you receive money from the state because it's a mandated service. And these provide lots and lots of dollars to yeshivas and to Jewish day schools across the state. So that's something that we're trying to advocate to get different programs like that going. The tax credit would be a game changer, I think, if that was passed. That would be able to provide that would that would give a tax credit to the donor or the contributor who makes a contribution to a scholarship organization, and that scholarship organization would then take that money and be able to apply that to the tuition of a parent or family that is struggling to make ends meet and struggling to pay the tuition. So that would be fantastic if that actually was passed.
Again, this is maybe not your department, but there is a lot of Jewish money out there. And you hear that people are giving tens of millions of dollars to universities. And again, everything is good. I'm not knocking anything.
Sure.
Colleges are good, and every organization, they're doing good things in their own right. But again, what's near and closest to our hearts is the Jewish education.
Sure.
Maybe to get, again, that may not be your job of just going to, literally there's billionaires and saying, hey, make a fund and help them out.
I think there are many scholarship organizations that are out there, and I think everyone recognizes that the people, for parents who send their kids to Jewish day schools, there is no bigger challenge than making sure you pay your tuitions. I have 4 children who all attend, a yeshiva, and I have a tremendous bill, and this is that you get after taxes. And you look at that bill and you say, how do we do this? How do we make ends meet? In New York, where the quality of living, the cost of living is so high, it's very troubling.
And your property tax bill.
Yeah, in Long Island, definitely. Right. But you make a very good point. But honestly, there are so many different people and different donors and contributors have their own different priorities. I was at an event last night where the focus was providing for victims of the Holocaust survivors, and although unfortunately the numbers of Holocaust survivors are diminishing year by year, you still have many, many Holocaust survivors who are without any food to eat at night, without any funding, and you have people who feel very strongly about that. And those people provide, that's their number one priority, and I think it's a very worthy priority, and they provide funding for those people. And you have other people who, back switching hats to my other job, NCSY that the OU ran, children.
Just for the people, the youth programs of the
The National Council of Synagogue Youth, that's correct. And they provide services to children who are not in Jewish day schools and yeshivas, and who want to get more involved in their Judaism. And UJA does the same thing. They have many, many different programs that touch the lives of many, many different people. Be it providing food and refreshments, drinks, support, welfare to individuals who are in need, or providing advocacy initiatives so that people can come to Albany and come to Washington and go to New York City and make sure that their voices are heard with issues like day school affordability. There are lots of different issues. So to say that, although it definitely is challenging, the most challenging issue for me is how do I pay my yeshiva tuition?
Personally,
yeah. From a personal level.
I want to know what your most challenging issue is in your new job.
There are many different issues that we have to make sure are provided for. Children with developmental disabilities, people who don't have jobs, who are unemployed, who need workforce development. There are lots of different issues out there, and they can all use lots of help and lots of support. And we try to provide that.
You have a question?
Always
or did
a good
he
question.
say everything that you needed to hear?
Well, I want to see the money already. That's what we started the show with. We all need donations.
What's obviously UJA files their annual report and they make it public. So I guess what I'm asking you is not behind the scene, but what is the budget for your particular UJA-Federation?
Well, I can tell you that on the fundraising side, they've raised in their annual campaign, I think they raised about $145 million.
You're talking about just New York City now?
This region.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about
New York
the
City,
UJA-Federation in New York. I can't speak to the different federations
Right.
across the state.
He's not talking about northeastern New York. He's just talking about his own.
Yeah, well, that's New York City.
chapter.
That's what I'm saying. Is New York
City,
or
Long Island, Westchester. Well,
Right.
New York City, Long Island, and Westchester. It's all
Right.
It's
not
all
Rockland?
I'm sorry?
Rockland's not included?
No, Rockland is not in our catchment area.
Okay.
But they raised $145 million. I think they distributed over $135 million directly to our agencies and charities, and going to make sure that they're directly benefits the people that those agencies serve. So I would they make everything public, and
Right. So
every dollar is very well spent, and the amount that they give their agencies. The calculation is around 20 times that amount can be leveraged 20 times in government funding. So we try to make sure every dollar, is put to the best of use and every dollar counts. And, we...
Now, the 145 million that's been raised, when you say raised, is that just from donations from individual people?
Yes.
Is that interest on trust funds you might be holding, or is that money that includes government, or is that on top of it, or?
Well, the UJA doesn't receive any government funding or support, so we don't receive any grants or anything like that from any government agency or any level of government. It's all, I can't speak to how much of it is interest on trust or whatnot, but I believe that the bulk of it, or all the money initially, comes from individual donors and contributors. Be it the donor who gives $18 or the donor who gives, $100,000.
$18 million, right.
They have a very wide base of donors, and they're trying to keep growing. And they're, as you mentioned, they service, all types of different Jews: Reform, Conservative, Orthodox. The CEO of UJA-Federation is Eric Goldstein, who's a non-Orthodox Jewish individual who started a few months ago, and who was a partner in a very large law firm, and he came to UJA. He was on the board. He was very involved for a very long time. So, all stripes, all colors, get serviced by UJA.
So what's his name again?
Eric Goldstein.
Okay, because they updated the website. I think
They did. I
on
believe he definitely should be on
You
the
know
website.
what?
And you're not yet.
I don't know.
But you should be. But I just wanted to let you know.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to ask you about women in leadership, because
Sure.
the president of your board is a woman. I forgot her name, but
Elisa Doctoroff. Elisa
Okay.
Doctoroff, yes.
and so are there more women getting involved, or is it? And I didn't see anyone of color, and there are Jews of color, and I was wondering if you're sort of trying to get a mixture of not of being more than just all white men.
Sure. Well, for UJA, UJA is actually the exact opposite, as you mentioned, where you have they have a very diverse hiring practice, and Elisa Doctoroff is the president. Linda Merles is the chairwoman of the board, and they have the chairwoman of my department, the Government Relations and External Affairs Department, is a woman by the name of Karen Kasner. So women definitely have a very strong leadership role in UJA. And they've been very, they've been on the forefront of making sure, promoting women. But over there, fortunately, and I'm really happy to be in an organization like this, there doesn't need to be an extra effort that's made to promote women, because they don't judge a person based on their gender or, their race or their religion. If you have the desire to help out the Jewish people and to further the mission of UJA, and you have the capability and the intelligence, you work there, and you do what you can. Other organizations, I think they are very taking many strong steps to making sure that women have a leadership role, and that's how it should be.
It was interesting because the president of the board, I think, was, when I read this little bio, she's from South Africa or Swaziland?
It's Linda Merles, yes.
That was Linda.
Yes, Linda,
She's
yes.
really
she's
has
the chairwoman, yes. She's fantastic. She's a social worker, and she really is a wonderful person.
But she
with
comes
many
from the
talents.
African continent, so.
Yes.
He's an Afro-American. And, one thing I wanted to ask, again, with fundraising, saying it's the same idea, is that I did read an article where, it's really like an X, meaning that on one hand, the Orthodox Jews and yeshivas are booming, and that's why they need more money. On the other hand, the assimilation of the Jewish people is also, unfortunately, that's increasing. A lot more intermarriages, a lot more assimilation, so that they were saying in this article that because of so much assimilation, a regular Jewish person, an older person, I have to, of course, Jewish Federation, they're helping so many Jewish causes, Jewish people, like you say, the whole gamut, and that's where I
Sure.
should help them, of course.
Sure.
But the more modern or younger Jewish person doesn't feel that way. There's obviously other causes in the world besides
course.
Jewish causes.
Of course.
Oh,
They were
really? I didn't know that. Really?
They were grown up as assimilated. There's so many medical funds, the cancer fund, heart fund, et cetera, as we all know.
Right.
And their money is a little bit leaning more to the regular secular things, which again, no, I'm not knocking anything, because
Sure.
they're important also, but our hearts and minds are all, of course, that Jewish people should have their funding. Do you see any?
Well, you're not a fundraiser for the
I'm not
so-
involved in fundraising, but I can just I could comment that one of the missions, or one of the founding principles of UJA-Federation of New York, is the concept of tikkun olam, which means repairing the world and doing what you can to make sure that justice is spread and that the people who are in need of of services receive those services. And I think that's the core principle that many people identify with. Many people in the Orthodox, conservative, reform levels of Judaism, and I think that although there are many charities out there, and I'm sure that the contributors and donors to UJA also contribute to a variety of other charities, I think that the need to help out the Jewish community is something that's foremost in their minds.
Let me ask you on more directly towards what your responsibilities are
Sure.
at UJA. I remember that there was a gentleman with the OU who's now living in Florida, Mandy Gantra, and he used to have a program. And I know that Jim Bunning was one of the recipients who used to be a Major League Baseball player and all that.
Sure.
He's in the Hall of Fame. And he was a U.S. Senator from Kentucky. So, people who are not normally associated with the Jewish community, people who've been educated and became supportive of the Jewish community, they would have some sort of an award ceremony inviting these people from states that where they've heightened their awareness,
Sure.
They deserve an honor, they deserve an award. I mean, and then he retired and the OU dropped that award ceremony.
Okay.
But I thought it was fantastic.
Sure.
And I don't know if UJA would pick that up just on your regional level and
Right.
then do something sort of on a more local area.
Well, that is a very good idea, and we have we have Westchester, Long Island, New York City is government relations. We have different divisions of them, so they do have award ceremonies that they present legislator of the year and whatnot. But of course, you're talking about more on a larger domestic, getting someone in Kentucky, you're saying, or getting someone in North Dakota. I mean that's an interesting concept, but
because he said, Mandy Gantra said, anyone who represents New York as an elected official is disqualified from getting this award.
Right.
That was his rule. He said, because if you're an elected official in New York, you're automatically a supporter of Israel and Jewish causes, and so you're automatically disqualified.
Yeah.
So he brought in people that would be educated from outside the region.
Right. Well, obviously, in the halls of Congress, you have many people who have very strong evangelical ties to Israel and to Jewish causes by extension. But I find that in New York, you do have to do sometimes a lot of work to talk to different legislators and electeds about the issues that are important to the Jewish community, whether, be it Israel, for example, where a lot of people don't understand the nuances of what's going on there and, how everything is shaping out and what exactly all the fighting is about. And they really need some, education.
In the New York
as
State
far as
Legislature?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
After the show, I'm going to ask you to give me some of those names. Holy cow.
For people who don't have large Jewish constituencies, this isn't what's foremost on their mind, and they have impressions based on media or
right. But the state legislature doesn't deal with Israel. They don't have a policy
right. So
stance to take on Israel.
Right.
So it's not one of their foremost things. But
sure, but in Congress, I'm saying you have 400 members of the House of Representatives and 100 senators. So you would imagine that probably the senators probably have opinions on Israel and know about what's going on. But there's so many different Congress members. I'm sure that many people need lots of different different types of education regarding that, which is something I guess in New York, and I think this is beneficial. One of our agencies, the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council, they take assembly members from across the state and senators from across the state and New York City Council members, community leaders on different missions to Israel to educate them, to bring them to Israel, to take them on the ground. Because there's one thing reading about it in a book or in a magazine or seeing it on TV or in the media, on the internet, but it's another thing to actually be there and meet with the people who are affected. And
truth be told, I've never been to Israel.
Really?
Yeah.
So we got to go with a lot of.
You got to help me with that.
Well, thanks for mentioning that. We're gonna we'll keep that
All
in
right,
mind.
I think we're out of time on that note over here. Then we'll make the Jewish view in Israel. That's what we ought to
That's
do.
right.
Have a show.
That'd be great.
Dad, thank you very much, Steve, Dad, for being on the Jewish View and taking your time out from New York City. You're doing great work. Did great work with the OU, that's the Orthodox Union, now with the Federation. So keep it up and grow and do it with success and good health.
Thank you
the
very much,
best of
Rabbi.
success.
Thank you, Mark, for your time.